Hi everyone, Kiss the Knee, Kiss Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the brand new Joji album, Ballads 1. This is the debut full-length commercial album of YouTube meme lord gone alternative R&B superstar Joji, aka George Miller, one of the biggest names on the 88 Rising label, a status he rocketed to last year when he dropped his In Tongues EP, a little project that carried an admirably moody vibe, but was severely lacking with its mostly nondescript vocal performances and very rudimentary production. Even though there were some parts of this EP that I liked, for the most part it was pretty bland and unmemorable. So as far as this new album goes, I was kind of hoping that Joji would bring a huge improvement on all fronts, or else I would be in for yet another snoozer. And for a second, it felt like we were going to get a truly exciting album from the smell of some of the teaser tracks to this thing, namely the single Slow Dancing in the Dark. Easily one of Joji's most fully realized songs yet. Far better than anything he had put out up until that point in terms of lyricism, in terms of vocal performance. Also the sound and the instrumental of this thing. I love the dreamy arpeggios colored all over this track. Very smooth bass as well. The vocal lines on this cut have kind of a vintage feel. Explosive hook as well with a wall of very bright ringing synthesizers. The track was sad and romantic and captivating and held way more emotion than anything on that EP. So that single was a really good start, and now that I'm hearing the entire album, there are some things that I like about it. I love Ballads 1's very simple lo-fi recording style, even if it is a bit of a double-edged sword on some tracks. For the most part, this record's very rough aesthetic adds to how sad and moody it is. I think it gives a lot of the songs on this thing kind of an edge and a bit of personality too. Occasionally that lo-fi edge is oddly missing, mostly on the track Test Drive, which in my opinion, mostly just sounds like a lazy Post Malone ripoff. Or it can occasionally go overboard, like on the opening track Attention, which in the middle of the song features these huge, rumbling, clipping, overblown bass notes that suck up the mix so hard that the vocals basically become distorted, fuzzed out, and unintelligible. I appreciate the attempt at doing something a little experimental and a little weird here. Lord knows there are tons of weird lo-fi and distorted songs and albums that I enjoy quite a bit, but I would not cite this song as an example of it being done well. Most of the time, the lo-fi aesthetic of the production on this thing reaches a healthy middle ground. Like on the song Wanted You, which features these thuddy kick drums and kind of scattered, dirty, filthy hi-hats, some sunburnt guitars wailing out. Definitely makes the track sound woozy and overwhelming and bittersweet. Then there's the track Can't Get Over You, which features Clams Casino, a song that features a gentle but very funky beat with a super miniature kick and snare pattern, some slick bass and what sounds like some very plucky keyboard notes hard panned into each channel. It's endearing, it's cute, it's kind of sweet. And then there's the track Why Am I Still in LA, which at the midpoint features this rush of distorted guitars and some pretty heavy bass. Some driving drums too. Then on the verses we get these lonely glockenspiel notes. Honestly, it almost sounds like something out of an old Mount Erie song. So there are elements of this album that do remind me of lo-fi indie, and then there are elements of it that remind me of similarly moody alternative R&B artists that also have rough productions surrounding their tracks, How to Dress Well or Spooky Black / Corbin. I think the sound that George is shooting for on this new record though is much more mesmerizing, almost to the point where it feels like a narcotic. And this consistently sad and moody and kind of druggy vibe is really the best thing that this album has going for it, because it's still a very flawed project. Not only because it has numerous tracks that don't really develop all that far and duck out prematurely, to the point where they basically feel like filler, talking about Can't Get Over You, which is just a minute and change, or the track Xanax, or the track R.I.P. with Trippie Redd, which fades out prematurely. And the song LA 2, even though this track is not one of the shortest on the entire album, it is pretty odd that it hits this really distorted, intense crescendo point in the middle of the cut, and then it just kind of coasts out into oblivion after that as if it doesn't really know where to go next. Believe me, there are other examples of much more coherent songwriting on this record. And occasionally, even when Joji does try to string these songs out into a more satisfying length, he has to get there by padding the track out in a really weird or awkward way. Like on the closing track of this thing, which features two completely uncomplimentary pieces of music faded into one another in this really jarring, unpleasant way. And even though this album does feature some vocal improvements on Joji's part, the vocals still do leave a little bit to be desired, as they range from totally forgettable, like on the track Yeah Right, or off-key and awkward, like some of the really god-awful auto-tuned background vocal riffing on the closing track. Some of the vocal layers on the track Wanted You are a total mess too. Thankfully, the really odd beat on this track and the song is so sharp that it kind of balances it out. Still, it does not change that all of the wee and vocal harmonies, I guess you could call them, that are really slurred throughout the track, they don't really come together all that well. They're terribly unflattering, even if I do like the raw display of emotion that Joji brings here. I also have a really odd attraction to the track No Fun. I like the bouncy beat, the simple lonesome message of the song is cute too. The lyrics might be incredibly reductive and maybe the rhyme scheme isn't that amazing, but it's still incredibly catchy, and I love how that pre-chorus moment where Joji is singing "And I Keep With Myself, Don't Fuck With No One Else," it sounds almost like something out of a J-pop song. This thing is 12 tracks, 35 minutes, doesn't really overstay its welcome. I like the vibe, I like the aesthetic, but overall, I'm pretty on the fence with it. Again, I like the sound, I like the aesthetic, I like most of the instrumentals, some of the songs. Vocals still remain to be an Achilles heel for Joji, unfortunately, and the writing can be really hit or miss, but I do like some of the sonic risks that he took on this record. I can definitely say that this album, in comparison with his EP, was a little more interesting, certainly more adventurous. Seems like he's coming into his own a bit more artistically, even if there are some cuts on here that feel very dime a dozen and trendy. This thing is pleasant, it's pretty, it's somber, but there's not a whole lot to dig into beyond the intoxicating energy that it radiates when you're playing it. Feeling a strong 5 to a light 6 on this thing. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like, please subscribe, and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up, or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Joji Ballads 1, forever.